Hello and welcome to a new series. So for quite a while now I've been doing the Seeds of Flourishing videos and more recently a parallel set of videos, Things That Spark Joy. And so this is a spin-off from those, I suppose. And part of it was in some way further inspired by a comment someone had made when I did the Kerrang video recently about my back issues of Kerrang, that they were impressed, I think, that I still had the copies, and I think I mentioned that they'd actually survived the transatlantic move via ship, or I alluded to that, I think. And it got me thinking about things that I still managed to have kept after all these years. So I want to do a series. I suppose it'll to some degree replace Things That Spark Joy, and the series is going to be called My Life in Objects. So I was curious as a result of the previous Things That Spark Joy video as to what I had actually managed to have kept from various stages in my life. The reason why I'm not doing these as things that spark joy is some of them might not necessarily revolve around happy times, but they just remind me of a certain time in my life. This is a happy times video, and today's video is about old badges or pins or whatever you want to call them, old band pins and old band patches. These would be all from around the early 80s, and in terms of going forward I'm going to be pretty random in terms of the timeline. So it could be stuff that's pretty old, it could be stuff that's a lot newer. I'll just go with what I find as I rummage through various boxes, some of which may not have been opened that recently. I think anybody that's done a move in their life probably knows what I mean, or a major move, and often you have these boxes of things that you wanted to keep because you thought they might be useful or they have some sentimental value, and they probably haven't been opened many times, if at all, since you've actually moved. Anyway, on with the focus of this episode. So what we have here, I suppose, represents an affordable artifact, of set of objects from the 80s, which a lot of people that were into music typically might purchase if, for whatever reason you couldn't afford it on a particular occasion to buy an album or a single. This was a nice, reasonable, I suppose, alternative of a way of you flying your particular band colours. And, I'm already getting a big smile on my face when I think back to that sort of period in my life. And so these, I think, looking at these would all be from the early 80s. So I'm just going to go through these and then point out what they represent, what interesting thing around these. So probably the first band I was big into, and that dates back to the 70s, would be Queen. I'm probably told this story numerous times, where I used to go around to a friend's house and their parents had a copy of A Night at the Opera, and I lost track of how many times we listened to that. And then I remember, so this must have been, was it 70? I'm trying to think when jazz came out. So I remember his parents buying jazz and us listening to that as well, tracks like Don't Stop Me. These, I suspect, were my earliest pin purchases. So we have one of these here, which is one of these sort of mirror pins. I don't know if anybody remembers these. I'm assuming you can still get them. And then a plain old, sort of thing. I don't even know what material this is made out of. Is that sort of tin of some description? And with a lot of these, you know, when they get old, this starts to go around here. These obviously used to be on a jacket at some point. So I think these and these ones, which are the plastic ones, where they've just spray painted with glossy or shiny paint, either in gold or silver, over the top. So I think these were always your sort of cheapest purchases available to you. So we've got a Rush one here. Rush, I don't know if they were a follow-on band. Again, it came about with Rush of me hanging out at a friend's house. So that may have been... So with the Queen ones, that's got to be late 70s, early 80s. This might be around the same region. I used to hang out at a friend's house. We used to listen to 2112 a lot. And also Kiss Destroyer. The Rainbow one, I think, must have come about as a result of me listening to the Friday Rock Show and hearing for the first time Rainbow Rising when they did their 1 year countdown. The Radio 1 Rock Show had been on since November 78, and in 79 was the first time I heard it, and they were doing a top 10 and they played Rainbow Rising by Rainbow, and I was just blown away by that track. And so I suspect not long after that I bought this. Now this one, these are tended to be the more expensive ones, so that's a pretty heavy, I don't have a scale here, it's a pretty heavy Mptorhead one. So, you know, good thing is to have a heavy Mptorhead badge. What are these made out of? It's got, what's that, P49 poker on the back. Anyway, and you can see down here there's a Saxon Wheels of Steel. Well, it's their eagle that they used to use, their logo, that one. So these I remember being slightly more expensive. So first Mptorhead album I bought would be Overkill, and so when I bought Overkill, I'm just trying to think, the album after that would have been Bomber, but I'm pretty sure I bought Overkill retrospectively. So this would have been bought, I think, between Bomber and Ace of Spades, maybe? Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. These ones as well, these, well, the enamel ones, these I think used to be quite pricey. So there's a rather funny knockoff Angel Witch one. I don't remember Angel Witch ever formally using that logo. It's pretty cheesy. I do also have an Angel Witch Coven badge somewhere, which is really just a pin from the fan club, but I can't remember where that is. And then these are a bit later, I think. This is one that Sounds just had attached to one of their weekly. Sounds was like a weekly newspaper in the UK for music, and obviously Kerrang, which you saw in an earlier episode. This came attached to one of the Kerrang issues, I think. I did find a more recent one as well, which this one, and the name of the band escapes me. This actually came in I don't know if you remember, there was a period where cassette singles were a real big thing sometime in the 80s into the 90s, maybe in the 90s, and some of them used to come in like almost like a cigarette packet type thing, which meant they could put other things in it, and this came with it. But I don't know if anybody recognises the band from their logo. It was one of their sort of logos. They had a track, I think, called, was it Teeth Grinder? I'm sure it'll come back to me after the video, but I found this lurking. This is, like I say, a lot later. This is in the 90s. And then, of course, what self-respecting 80s metal fan would not have a Twisted Sister pin. So this one, I think, may have come... It's quite a nice one. I don't think this came from the fan club, as my brother was a member for a period of time, and I think he got a cassette. This may have come from a 12-inch single. I do also have the card, the plastic card as well somewhere. It's probably upstairs. But yeah, this is funny. Is that a Twisted Sister pin? Yes, it certainly is. So that's the pins. So the other things, and this makes me smile. I don't know how many of these things I'm going to show you actually ended up on a battle jacket. I actually used to spend a lot more time spent sewing patches on my youngest brother's battle jacket. But these are some patches I obtained at the time. So again, yeah, very much 80s, like Riot Narita, Scorpions, Girls' School, yeah, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. I've got a couple of big ones at the end, which unfortunately have got a bit folded, which I'll bring out. Our old friends Mptorhead. This one is another one I think that came with a single. I think I've got a girl single on white vinyl. I'll have to dig out my singles collection at some point as well and do that in an episode. Oh yeah, the Judas Priest one. We got Killer's era, Iron Maiden. So that gives you some idea as to when I bought that. You can see it's sort of fading on the back there. Some of these definitely look like they have been sewn on. You can see there's the remnants of some sewing there. Yeah, that always used to be a funny thing, didn't it? Like a lot of people that were into metal in the 80s and probably subsequently developed pretty good sewing skills, or sufficient sewing skills to be able to sew patches onto battle jackets. That one I think did come from the fan club, maybe. Oh, there's a sparkly Van Halen one and a Def Leppard one. That looks like that's been on a jacket as well. Unfortunately, I can't find what I did with my Def Leppard enamel pin. I gave a couple of my pins to my wife when I first came over to Canada, and I recovered this one this morning, but there's a few others I didn't bother recovering. Oh, and this as well. This has still got the protective backing on it. This never ended up. I was pretty pleased with this. This is a Angel Witch UK Tour 1980 patch, which came through the fan club. So that never got attached to anything. Kept that really nice. And then a few ones that have become sadly a little bit scrunched up. So there's a one from early 1980s, an Iron Maiden one. And then finally this one, which is cool because it's like my favourite Judas Priest album. This is the Sad Wings of Destiny artwork. But yeah, sort of, I suppose, funny story is, I used to spend a lot of my Sunday afternoons, which was me and my brothers, because I've got two brothers, our music appreciation moment where we'd sit down on a Sunday afternoon together, which is unusual for brothers. Often you're always fighting, but we'd sit down and we'd listen to music on a Sunday. But while we were listening to music, I used to be sewing patches on my youngest brother's battle jacket. And I remember one time I persuaded him to buy these metal studs. They were pretty reasonable, but the funny thing is we had no tools to put them on the jacket. So I remember spending this afternoon with a piece of wood, one of my dad's hammers, because my dad had his own business. He was a self-employed builder, so we had plenty of like heavy stuff like that, but we had nothing specifically to put studs in a jacket. But I remember improvising with one of his hammers and something to like split the pins on it because these were heavy. These weren't the cheap ones that just fold out. These were the real deal. These were the ones you had to whack with something. And so we had like a metal block and a hammer and then something else to try and part the metal flanges or whatever they're called. And it's like, well, I wish we bought the cheap ones now, because these were like the solid ones. They weren't the cheap ones where there's the cone and behind it there's no metal. These had the full metal behind the cone and the full metal flanges on them as well. So anyway, I thought you'd find this as interesting as I did in making this. This certainly, very much brings back memories, and this certainly sums up part of my life in objects. So I look forward to doing the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.